Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are just starting with Sir John Oldcastle. We started with the prologue yesterday, so today we get to hear from the Sheriff of Hereford in Act 1, Scene 1. And wow, you know, they tell you that you need to start a play off with a bang. This one definitely starts off with a bang. I mean, we had the prologue yesterday saying this is a play about John Oldcastle, the proto-Protestant martyr. This is not a play about John Falstaff, the gluttonous guy from all of those other Henry plays that Shakespeare wrote. But then Act 1, Scene 1 starts off with a battle. Before there's any dialogue, we just get a whole bunch of people come on stage and they fight. And we will find out when they start talking that it's Lord Herbert and his crew and Lord Powys and his crew, but unless you know who they are, you might not know who they are or why they're fighting. But we'll find out why they're fighting. It's a good attention grabber, and it's yet another way of separating. This is not a play about Falstaff. This is a play about fighting in the streets, apparently. But, you know, we don't know why they're fighting, but they fight for a little while, and then the Sheriff of Hereford enters, and he tries to break it up, but he's unsuccessful. They start going at it again, and the Sheriff is like, I need you all to, stop fighting so you can listen to the King's proclamation. And Herbert and Powys are both like, okay, fine, but keep it short, because, we have some fighting that we need to do now. And then there's this whole bit with the bailiff says, oh, yes, and then there's, oh, you should make a bigger so you get a smaller yes and all that sort. It devolves into orgasm jokes, and then the two sides start fighting again. And the stage direction, I love it, just says helter skelter again. And in this bit of helter skelter, the bailiff is knocked down, and then the sheriff and the bailiffs run away, and then there's insults thrown on both sides between the Herbert faction and the Powys faction, until the mayor comes in with his officers and a sergeant and a bunch of townspeople with clubs trying to break it up. And the mayor's like, okay, everybody silence. Sheriff, you now have the floor to read out the King's proclamation, which the sheriff does. It basically says everybody has to leave Hereford right now unless you specifically have been ordered that you need to stay here in the court. And anybody who does have permission to stay here is forbidden from wearing any sort of weapons. You will be severely punished if you're found wearing weapons. And that also Lord Powys needs to evacuate the city immediately with all of his people on pain of imprisonment. So if they don't immediately leave the city, they're all going to be thrown in jail. So of course fighting breaks out again between the two sides, and this time Herbert is wounded, and the mayor and his crew leave crying clubs, and Powys runs away, and a couple of Herbert's men go over to Herbert to help him. There's one named Goff who goes over to try to help him, and then two judges come in with the sheriff and some bailiffs. And when the judge finds out that Herbert is mortally wounded, he's like, well, take him off to get medical attention. And while we're at it, we need to arrest that guy Powys. But somebody's like, well, Powys already ran away. So he arrests Powys's men, Davy and Owen, instead. And they try to bargain their way out of being arrested, but that doesn't work. They are taken away to prison. So now it's just most of Herbert and Powys's factions have now left the stage. Herbert's faction has left to take care of Herbert. Since Powys ran away and his men have been arrested, it's basically just the judges and the sheriffs and the bailiff left. And the second judge turns and he looks around and he's like, what was all of this about anyway? Which is what the audience is wondering at this point too, because we don't necessarily have context for who Herbert and Powys are and why they hate each other. I mean, at least at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, we know that these are two families that have been fighting for a very long time about stuff. It's an ancient grudge. We've gotten no introduction to Herbert or Powys at all. So since we've already had 6 battles with some insults and some sexual innuendo, now the second judge says, what is this all about? Now it's time for some exposition. So the sheriff answers, about religion, as I heard, my lord. Lord Powys detracted from the power of Rome, affirming Wycliffe's doctrine to be true and Rome's erroneous. Hot reply was made by the Lord Herbert, they were traitors all that would maintain it. Powys answered, they were as true, as noble, and as wise as he that would defend it with their lives. He named, for instance, Sir John Oldcastle, the Lord Cobham. Herbert replied again, he, thou, and all are traitors that so hold. The lie was given, the several factions drawn, and so enraged that we could not appease it. So this was a battle in the streets about religion. We have Powys saying that Wycliffe's doctrine, who's one of the proto-Protestants, saying that the proto-Protestant doctrine is true and the Roman Catholic Church is false. And Lord Herbert is like, nope, it's the other way around. The Roman Catholic Church is correct and the Protestants are false. So then they started fighting over religious differences, and it spilled out into the street, and everybody's calling everybody else traitors, and so much so that we weren't able to get all of this under control. So at least we have a little bit of context now for who Herbert and Powys are. Powys is a proto-Protestant, Herbert is a Roman Catholic. John Oldcastle, in this case, is also named as a proto-Protestant, so Powys and Oldcastle are going to be on the same side. But yeah, the two are fighting. So yay, religious warfare. We knew it was coming. And in response to this, we are going to get to hear from the first judge tomorrow with his thoughts on the whole situation. So I'll see you then for that. Mwah.